Okay, call to order of the Infrastructure Advisory and Oversight Board on October 28th. You want to do roll call, please?
Jeremy Riederman.
Here.
Phil Weinberg.
Here.
Dan Fisher.
Here.
Barikia LaFale.
Here.
Tom Gom. David Wills. You have a quorum.
Public comments, non-agenda items only. Individuals wishing to speak on specific agenda items can do so at the time the item is being considered by the board. I'll ask if there's any public comments prior to the board taking action on the item, and then all speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. For the agenda items, item number 1, review the Krista McCulley parent loop with the police department. Hey, sorry.
Would have been fine. I would have forgiven you. Bill Batten, 586 Ocean Spray Street, Southwest. As you're probably all aware, since the audit has come out and some of the recommendations that are in there, I was just curious about item number 1 that came out in the audit, or the topics of the audit, of how it might impact for the future road programs or any current road programs coming out of TIF funding and something like that. Just something to be considering how it might impact us in the future upcoming years. Something to keep in your mind, that some of that funding might have to be redirected. That being said, thank you very much. And they're paving roads. Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 1.
Again, Frank Watanabe, the city engineer. Let me take the lead on this, and then I'll have PD come up and talk. This was brought up from the last board meeting where we had discussion on the parent loop pickup for Christine McCullough. We had some dialogue regarding what was programmed as an operational parent loop pickup we have on many elementary school locations. So it wasn't new to us to have these type of operations. This one, there was discussion regarding not enough communication between the parents and the faculty and maybe even staff. And so that's the reason why it was not on the agenda last time. It was just a presentation I gave what was happening in terms of safe routes to school operations. And so that item was discussed, so we tabled and we brought it back as an item this time for any discussions and additional information from PD based on dialogue and comments from the board. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
My biggest concern that I brought up was me being a parent, and I just did not understand how that decision was made in regards to Krista McCullough car loop without involving parents. I don't understand how the police department and the principals making decision, they're not in the one in the cars. So I advise in the future, in regards to any school, get the parents involved, get their input. Because me personally, I cannot sit in that car loop. I personally have to park at the Omni building and walk to go get my children. I cannot be in a car loop for 45 to an hour. So I just don't understand, where did we go wrong? And from this point forward, make sure we don't do it again.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, if I may. Ms. LaFay, obviously, as she said, she has children that go to that school. Not surprisingly, I don't. But she let us know, she informed us that she contacted the principal of that school and was told by the principal that she wasn't involved. Subsequently, I found out that that's not necessarily true. The principal was involved. However, as Ms. LaFay said, this is a decision and that really affects the parents of these children who drop their children off at school. Not to have the parents actively involved in making these decisions and informing them of the decisions, I think is somebody really dropped the ball. I think going forward that anytime anything like this comes up, there should be a note going out to the parents, giving them an opportunity to meet with the people involved, police department, the school, and the parents to inform them and to get their input before any of these decisions are made.
Sir, in this particular case, our officer, Officer Morgan, did work with Principal Finstead on this. They met, I believe, in March. This all started up, if you're familiar, the original drop-off loop became the bus loop off Del Mundo there. And so they had to reroute the drop-off loop for the kids to the other section. We were asked to be part of that decision-making along with Public Works, along with the principal, along with the school board, the vice principal, and the school security. Officer Morgan did meet with Principal Feinstead many times. In fact, on July the 3rd, Principal Feinstead wrote, and I will quote, "I have worked with Officer Morgan to develop a new car parking travel route and communicate with our parents." And then again in August, Principal Feinstead wrote that Officer Morgan arrived on campus and informed us yesterday that the city council, or the city, placed all the parent loop parking signs up to reroute the approval for departing patterns. And she further goes on to say, "I will be sending out a synergy note to all parents, making them aware of the new changes." So I don't know if that did not occur, but that's the direction that we got from the principal, that she was doing that. That was on August the 8th.
Parents were not aware this decisions was being made. We find out after. There was a lot of parents extremely upset, and when they brought that up to her concern in the front desk, they were redirected to contact the Palm Bay Police. So somebody dropped the ball somewhere, and as I stated before, being a parent, I want to provide my input in that decision making, and that was not available.
So you're saying the principal did not contact you, like she says?
No.
Okay. I would have to direct the questions to the principal. We're going based on what she said she did.
Yeah, I understand that, sir. But again, Ms. LaFay contacted the principal afterwards and was told that she had nothing to do with it, but which is not true, but that's fine. But I think we need to look at this as a policy before anything like this is enacted in the future, that we require that a meeting is held, a notice has gone out to the parents, and a meeting is held with the parents, the school, the principal, and the police department all together, so that they can discuss any concerns before anything like this is just enacted without their knowledge. That would solve that problem.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
To help out the board, I wasn't here too when this happened, but I am air traffic engineer. Where I've come in the past, and if you do federal fund projects, you have to have what they call community-based meeting and to enact any federal dollars for safe routes to school, for any kind of sidewalk improvements, for any type of school and interactive between enforcement and traffic. They highly encourage now, and they mandate now these community-based meetings. So now that I'm here, we will have community-based meetings prior to any implementations. In the early planning stages, we'll work with PD, with the engineering staff, and the school principal and the school staff, as well as parents, and have these meetings in advance of any implementation. So from this point on, we will do that. Again, I apologize. In the past, I wasn't here. However, it appears to be a lot of communication. I saw emails from Conroy, who was the previous traffic person, that had dialogue. Before I signed and sealed the map, I was asked, and I asked many of my operations staff, and they said there's lots of dialogue that occurred. I support the sign still, and I want to keep moving forward with the project because I think it's getting better. If you want to highlight.
It is actually, I checked with the city manager's office today, and they haven't received any complaints on the parking loop in the last month and a half. When it first went implemented, as we expected, any kind of change on anything, whether it's a parking loop or any kind of change, results in confusion and some people being upset. But since then, and also Officer Morgan, who goes out and monitors the situation out there, has said that it's dramatically increased over like about 75% of the normal wait times that were occurring before.
I appreciate that, but again, it's not having the parents involved in the decision-making and have them aware of this before it actually takes place, I think would resolve a lot of that confusion and pandemonium that resulted, especially in this case.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Watanabe has agreed to do that now, so.
Understood. Again, now from Mr. Watanabe's standpoint, he does the engineering point of it, which really, is just, that's not going to change. It's the the process of discussing it, the process of implementing it, the parents need to be a part of that decision-making process.
Yes, sir.
And Commissioner, that's what I meant when I said engineer would take the lead and work with PD, but this would be, in these community-based meetings requires all participants, including the parents and the schools. It'll be documented, so there won't be any questionable doubt in the future what he or she said, because all the meetings will be documented, be minutes, and that way you can move forward, and hopefully at the end result of a future project like this, you'll have documentation to support any questions.
Other questions?
Comments?
I agree. Thank you.
Chief, how many cars use that loop in the afternoon? Do you know?
I don't have a count for you, sir.
Okay.
I know it's
A
quite
bunch.
quite a few. Yes, sir.
Hundreds?
Yes. And as you know, it's a very small neighborhood in that area too. So it's, no matter how you run it, it's going to be a very congested effort.
Purpose of, sorry. The purpose of this, I know it's a meandering loop, but the purpose of this is basically to keep traffic from backing up on Minton Road?
That is correct. The original intent was, well, the original pickup was on the current new bus loop where the traffic will back up onto Minton and all along Minton, and so Minton Road having a higher speed, roadway, lots of concerns regarding rear ends, lots of concerns regarding parents on an active roadway. Better to have them in a local residential street where we put most of our parent loop pickups. This one, we didn't have a solid circular way to get in and out. It was more meandering, so it took a lot more signs, and it took a lot more understanding from the parents to figure out what's the right turns and where to go and where to park. It's getting better, but I was out there the first few days, and it was, it wasn't running smoothly, but it has in the last few weeks. I've gone out there much smoother in operations. In the future, we may want to work to see if we want to make some additional tweaks, but I think as it moves forward, it'll get better and better. As we educate people and people get accustomed to this parent loop pickup, it'll become a norm.
And due to the number of cars, like you said, if coming in off Minton like it was, now that being the bus drop-off, that was a no-go there, and coming in directly off of Americana into the school is even a shorter distance. So the school, all the cars would have been backed up on Americana through the intersection of Minton and forth with the morning traffic that's coming in. So the route that was developed was the best way to contain the large number of vehicles that go there to drop their children off without congesting the main thoroughfares, causing an issue with higher speed traffic and accidents. Welcome.
So we're talking about process here. The Pineapple Cove Academy that's just south of here,
Yes, sir.
they're expanding to include high school. Is that going to affect their queuing length? Is there any proposed changes that they're?
I could help answer that question because I did the site review. What you're asking right now is there's a high school that's already designed, built, and it's in operations actually. The high school did, as part of the high school operation, create an internal loop. It's supposed to help provide the queuing needed for both now the existing school and the high school. Based on my observation, there's still a little bit of queuing, but it's not where it's a tremendous amount of queuing because the high school does have a lot more students, but they provide busing, they provide a program to try to make sure that the two don't sync out or time out at the same time, and so far it's been working fairly well. I have not received any complaints so far.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
On the subject of the parent loop, I'd just like to know when the plans will be for Odyssey Charter School. Let me bring up the reason why I bring this up. Odyssey Charter School is, as you know, they're by Bayside Lakes and Eldron. Well, I had the unfortunate experience go down there when school was letting out. And the existing situation is that Eldron becomes one lane.
Yes, sir.
You're aware of that?
Yes, sir.
And so my only question to Frank the Public Works Director, is when are the plans to correct that situation? Because it's a traffic hazard right as we speak.
Wish we'd talked about this sooner. We just paved and restriped that area right now. I'm aware of the situation. What happens is is usually in the afternoon peak where parents want to get there and queue up for their pickups. And what happens is Eldorado is one lane each direction. There is a turn lane. However, there's a section where it's between this shopping center and the school. There's a little area that just can't fit and cars parked on the side and the through traffic. And so next thing you know, you're blocking the northbound direction traffic.
Exactly.
And it's been like that since I've been here a year ago.
Okay.
The need is to maybe work with the school to provide that kind of like a extended right turn lane. There is no right turn lane right now. It's really a northbound, southbound, and a left turn lane becoming southbound. But northbound, there's a transition area taper that parents like to straddle, and they straddle into the grass. But when you get to that shopping center, there's nothing there. So you got to jog back into the northbound lane, and so next thing you know, you're queuing up the northbound lane all the way up to back to sometimes even the signal. And I'm aware of this, but right now we have nothing on the books to, from an infrastructure standpoint, to take care of that. And we, like I said, we just paved it and restriped it about a week ago.
Moving on to item number 2, update on the St. John's Heritage Parkway and I-95 interchange.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give you guys a verbal update on where we sit with the both the interchange and where we sit with the actual parkway itself. Highlight on the interchange itself, and it's been in the paper. You know, the DOT has completed their interchange. They were completed in early August. I was out there. The last item of a punch list on that the interchange was the signals. We maintain the traffic signals up there at the interchange, so that's the reason why the city has maintenance issues up there at that interchange. So those traffic signals are maintained by the city, and so that was the last punch item that had to be taken care of to close out that interchange from the Ranger contract. Soon after the Ranger contract was released, there was a landscaping contract that followed. I'm not sure where that landscaping contract is, but I knew there was one out there, and they still are doing some minor landscaping and modifications. Soon after Ranger was released from their contract, their maintenance staff, FDOT doesn't have a maintenance crew in this area. They're farming out to DBI. They are now on position to maintain that closure of that interchange until such time we have ours open. That requires them to put additional barrels, additional barricades, and maintenance of that interchange. And they also, they actually turned the lights off too, which I was surprised. The entire interchange was lit and operational, and then when handover was, since our road was not open yet, they turned the lights off until such time we're open. So that's where FDOT sits with the interchange. They attend our bi-weekly meetings. Where we sit with our parkway, just to give you a heads up, our original substantial completion date was June 19th. It was June 19th. We did not meet that date because of delays in rains and delays in construction and delays before I even got here. But since I've been here since the beginning of this year to now, we've been working hard, and we've been working to get that roadway completed. As we speak right now, they are finishing the last of the rocking and the curb and gutter. Heavy rains last week caused a lot of delay. The problem is until you get the rock down, when you have heavy rain, it makes you have to restart a lot of the work again because you don't have a good place to create a nice solid base. So all that rock is in. Every time it rains, it creates more delay. But we are getting there. We have the last 1,500 linear feet of curb and gutter to do. They hope to have it done in the next couple days. Once that's done, all the curb and gutter is in. They are halfway down on the eastbound direction on rocking. They hope to get, if rain holds out, and they've increased trucking. They start off with 5 or 6 trucks, and now the last I heard there was up in the double digits, like 16 trucks. So they're trying to bring in as much rock as possible. We hope to get the rocking done in the next few weeks, and right after the rocking is done, then comes the paving. And so our new completion date, substantial completion date, is December 2nd. Again, that was our targeted date, just like we had the targeted date of June 19th. That was shifted because of some additional change orders. One of the biggest one was the original connection to Babcock Street, which is a county road, was taken out because we did not have permitting and other issues taken care of before I got here. We are right now at that point where we've submitted plans to the county. We are both a full intersection plan and a temporary plan. Just to give you a heads up, I just got the emails from the county engineer. We've been working to get a span wire traffic signal, so there will be a traffic signal there temporarily for 1 year. As when the roadway opens up, there'll be an intersection, there'll be a traffic signal there. I just got the okay from the county to install the 48-inch pipe that's gonna go under the roadway to our connection. Because right now, there's a 36-inch pipe that's not adequate for the future need for that area, so we're gonna put in as a 48-inch pipe. The county has given me a verbal. I'm hoping to get the paperwork. The city manager signed it. I sent it back to her. We're hoping to get that done in the next few days, get permit in hand, just to get the pipe in the ground. And the next piece would be to take the city council the signal, the traffic signal, the span wire signal. That's an additional cost that we're gonna take to city council. Hopefully the city council awards, gives us the approval to award it and give it to the contractor, and we'll move forward in installing that signal. So all that will happen in November, and hope to have in December, the intersection hopefully open to traffic. Open to traffic doesn't mean the project will be completed. There's probably going to be other items that still has to be taken care of, because if the project has landscaping, embankments, maybe even some trees and other irrigation issues along the median, the pathway, the sidewalk, a lot of items on a punch list, a lot of items on a long project of this size. But that's where we sit right now with the overall schedule and the plan. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, Frank, first of all, the road work that has been done looks outstanding. But my question would be, from what you just said, we don't even have permitting on the intersection at Babcock and the interchange, is that correct?
As of right now, yes, we do not have the permits. We started working on the permits since June, actually even earlier than June, when we submitted the plans. The county, it just takes a long time. Why it didn't happen earlier, I can't answer that question. As soon as I came on board with Suzanne Sermon, we went to the county. We've had dialogues. We addressed the issue that we need to design the intersection, which we did, and we submitted that. We identified the need to have an interim plan, which was this traffic signal, which is a span wire and a connection, which we did and which we submitted. And right now, like I said, I'm in dialogue, even today, to get a temporary, like they call it a temporary permit to get the pipe installed. Eventually, they'll give us the full permit of a right-of-way, but right now, they're working with us too, so they understand the need to get this roadway connected. So they're allowing me to give these temporary permits so I can put the pipe in, I can install the traffic signals. So the county has been working with us in a staffing level. So I just want to put that on the record.
But my understanding of when it comes to cost is the original $9 million for the connecting road, did that include that intersection?
Yes,
Or
it
is
did.
this intersection over and above that?
Now, the intersection was part of it. It was deducted and then re-added back in as a change order.
Okay. And there was $1.5 million for that that was earmarked for that intersection coming from the county. What happened to that money?
That money, I heard, actually I observed, it went south to a southern project on Babcock. Probably the paving or reconstruction of the southern portion down by Fellsmere. Still in the county, this county.
To service our residents or to service the Indian River County as residents?
I think it's a service to Brevard County residents south of us. It still continues farther south before it hits the Indian River County line.
Okay, thank you.
Frank, can I ask you something? You've kind of started going in that direction. What do you know about any plans the county might have as far as rebuilding, repairing Babcock southward from, say, where the interchange is?
I think this move of the 1.5 is to take that money and do the repairs south of our connection point. I'm not sure what they have on the books in terms of if it's a mill and pave, if it's a reconstruct or an FDR. I have no idea. I could find out and contact and get that information. I just don't know right now what's going on south. North of the interchange, that's under that what they call the FDOT PD&E, the Planning, Development, and Environmental Studies. There's a study going on paid by FDOT to identify the need for the four-lane widening of Babcock. That process is halfway through. That process, just to give you a heads up, has identified that within that corridor, there was a big corridor meeting that happened, I think it was March maybe later. Within that meeting discussion, they've addressed now, there's 17 intersections that goes from Malabar all the way down to the St. John's Heritage. That's pretty much the limits of the project. Of all those 17 intersections, except for Malabar at Babcock and the St. John Heritage Parkway at Babcock, which would be traditional traffic signals, 8-phase turn movements, all the other intersections, they're recommending traffic circles, roundabouts, primary. That's on the record. That's not me as a county, that's FDOT. Again, you'll have an opportunity to speak and review it, but that's what's on the books right now.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the other intersections or what?
All other intersections along the entire corridors are roundabouts. All of them. Waco. And
Seriously?
yeah. That's there, again, as a county, it's an FDOT study, and it has not been printed. As staff, I've been into a few meetings and been in the dialogue and in the review. Some ways I do support roundabouts. I don't think that maybe is a good idea, but you know, we'll see what happens. These are planning studies. They're still going to go through public input, through public comments. The draft has not been released, and the final will have to be, you know, produced based on input from the community. So there's still opportunities to voice your opinions and see where that study goes. And even if the study gets done and it's put into a report, doesn't mean it's going to happen the way the report says it, because things change.
We're talking years.
Oh, yes. The road is not funded from a construction standpoint. The road is not funded from a right-of-way standpoint. There's still dialogues, not with just our city. There's still dialogues with the town of Malabar, Balcarra, Grant. There's lots of dialogue still that has to occur way before this thing gets ironed out, you know, to a final corridor that says, here's where the road's going to go, and here's what we have for intersections.
Not to sound flippant, but can this happen in my lifetime?
Probably not.
Probably not? Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Tom.
Frank, is there, I mean, I understand that the corridor itself needs improvement, but what about keeping what we got? Is there any plans for maintenance on that?
That's a common question that we get a lot, because we have citizens thinking that Babcock is a city-maintained road. Babcock is a county-maintained road, so
Right.
we do have say. I think we do have say, but it's not ours to maintain. I think the county is trying to do the best they can. They have other priorities they're trying to take care of and address. But it's something that I think we need to work from a city standpoint, and since we're building up a good relationship with the county, and I'm going to say this, since I was, before my time, that wasn't a good relationship. I think with the new deputy city manager here, she's built a huge communication network between us and them, and I think it should continue. And that's how we start working together and getting things like our roadways within the county accomplished. And I think that's something we'll keep moving forward with.
Great. Thank you, Frank.
Chairman, one more? Okay. I sent an email, and I know the county's the county and the city's the city. I've, worked for the city, and I understand the differences. I understand a lot of people don't, but I sent an email to the county maybe a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks. Received a nice reply from the secretary, and she said that she was going to forward the email on, and that's the last, just for the record, that's the last I heard from anybody there. So.
Frank and the Director of Public Works, Mr. Woodson. The issue I have is I find that the Babcock widening and all of that is very good. Love it. However, who addressed the street lights on Babcock? I've been on this analysis of the inoperative street lights since 2016. Right now, as we speak, I didn't check last night, but you have over 25 streetlights out. Now, I tried to go through all kinds of avenues. I felt, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that once the streetlight is installed, FP&L's responsibility to maintain its operation. However, the complexity, I guess, as you just mentioned, Babcock is a county thing. Now, I've been told, I've been trying to communicate with Bart and Nancy Ficklinger. They don't return my emails no more on this issue. But I was told by other sources, oh, Public Works is going to take care of it. You know, you're improving the road, and it's a dark corridor. That's what we're dealing with. We can't get the lights to stay on. Who is responsible for maintaining lights?
The lights on Babcock is still a county road. However, the county has the same agreement we have with FP&L. FP&L are the ones who maintain that light pole and the lights itself. If you do have lights that are out, just
Right.
let us know. The person, her name is Nancy Flickinger.
Yes.
She's very good. Maybe she's overloaded right now, but in the past, we've had good working relationship with Nancy, and we'll be happy to, if you give us a list, to forward that on to make sure they get taken care
Stay with me here, because I did the due diligence. I submitted my complaint when it was about 17 lights, September 1st. Nancy Ficklinger, she responded. I think I talked to her one time on the phone, and she said she gave me I call it the all-encompassing excuse. Well, we have a lot of priorities. We got over 5,000 lights we got to maintain. Of course, I was incredulous about that response, but I waited. So now, most recently, I sent her an email about 3 weeks ago. I says, and I said it politely, I said, you're doing a good job with the new LED lights on the north side. This is what I love, because I studied this clearly. You very rarely have any lights go out on the northbound side of Babcock. Very rarely. The few that I reported, they got taken care of. However, you got a horrendous problem on the southbound side. God only knows why. But right now, as we speak, we got from the car wash, if you know where the car wash is on Babcock Street, all the way to Port Malabar. You got, you do have intermittent lights out, but basically in general, you got over 20 lights in a row, which I know that means a series circuit problem, out right now. And when I sent her a polite email, I said, when can I expect that this would get repaired? Well, I know she read the email because I get a return receipt. That's it. I didn't get no response back. So well, I liken that to they're tired of me, especially Bart also, because I've been harping on this because I believe street lights are important. I know it's a complex problem of getting a new street light. I don't want to go into that, but if you have existing installed street lights and you're doing these road improvements, would stand the reason that you'd have it well lit. As we can all agree, the merits of having a well lit street for safety, crime prevention, and so forth and so on. So I'm at a loss at what to do. I can send you the emails I sent her, but that's what you got right now. This is since September of this year.
Oh, September, you mean like
Meaning
a month
before
ago?
Hurricane Dorian, yes. And it has been out, and nobody is giving me, I mean, the people that are responsible for maintaining it have given me a response.
Can we table this till next
Oh.
week? Just,
Sure.
no,
I'm in agreement.
FPL is, they're not that responsive, and it is hurricane season. They transfer.
But that's not an excuse, because that was
Well-
before Hurricane Dorian. Because they tried to run that at me too.
No, I understand. I just
Those lights were
keep
out
a
before then.
record, and we'll, I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah,
Palm
but we
Bay,
can table
it's
it another
FPL.
time. Yeah, I agree
So,
with you,
Mr.
Chairman.
Chair?
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that the original time I met Mr. Jones, he was down at the BCRA talking about US 1 being out. I'd like
Yes.
to know from Mr. Jones, has that even been corrected?
Well, I've checked on that on the US 1. Those are the responsibility of the city of Palm Bay. They marginally, well, I would say a little more than marginally, they did light them up. However, I call it the extra attachments. If you know the street lights on the city Palm Bay street lights, they're like two cobras, and then you have another light underneath. Well, that fixture has not been replaced. And I would say there's about 4 of them that are still not to the condition that they should be in. And those are brand new. Well, when I say brand new, now it's going on 4-5 years since those lights have been put in that this city paid for. And they're not at full capacity. I don't understand why not. But they are. They have done better. I had to do like an act of Congress. I had to complain, as you well know, at BCRA. I've been complaining about that forever. But I stand corrected with the chairman. We can share that another time, but I feel it is commensurate with the overall improvements of road and infrastructure.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I don't know what we're going to chair. As Mr. Watanabe stated, Babcock Road is a county road. The county has a contract with FP&L to maintain the lights. Yeah, I can understand where it's frustrating. It goes through the city of Palm Bay, but however, as I said, it's a county road. The county is responsible for the contract with FP&L. The right people to contact would be, rather than contact FP&L directly, and they might get tired of it, is to deal with the right people, and that's County Public Works, who they're the ones who could be in touch and have some authority over FP&L's maintaining of those lights. It's not a city thing. We can't do anything about it. So I don't know what we're going to table, but it really needs to be taken up with County Public Works.
I won't debate you on that issue. However, starting from 2016, I had some positive results with Bart and Nancy Ficklinger. They have responded and took my request for the lights to be put on. So they have done it.
But they stopped, so.
Huh?
But they stopped, so.
Yeah, they stopped.
Take it up with the
They
County
stopped,
Public
yeah.
Works, please.
But that's where we're at, Frank. You know.
Item 3, presentation on microsurfacing.
Yeah, Chair, I'm going to have just an intro. We've had many discussions. I put this on since we're talking more about different types of road improvements. On our typical road paving program, we have the full reconstruct, we have a FDR, full depth reclamation, then we have thin lift, and we have mill and pave. Other options that we have in terms of road improvements is what they call microsurfacing. And that's it's not a new technology, but it's a technology that a lot of cities don't take advantage of. There's been enhancements in microsurfacing where they use now a double layer, double microsurfacing. And so with that, I thought the best thing would be to have a person who works for a company who provides this type of service to give us a presentation. And with that, I have Chris here from APS to give us a presentation.
Thanks, Frank, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to you today. Like I said, my name's Chris Shane. I'm with Asphalt Paving Systems. Asphalt Paving Systems, we're a full-service paving company. We do pavement preservation. We also do mill and overlay, and then we do full-depth reclamation. We're actually the contractor doing the full-depth reclamation on Elderon and the unit there by Elderon. And to touch on the point on South Babcock Street, we've actually been contracted by the county to do a little over 2 miles of South Babcock Street. So that should be taking place in November, next month sometime. But we're the largest microsurfacing contractor on the east coast of the United States. We started in Florida in 2009. Our mother company is in New Jersey. And then we also have offices in Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. And really, like Frank said, it's really about the right treatment at the right road at the right time. There's a lot of different treatments out there, and really picking the right one and using all of them to extend your budget is the key to having a successful road program. So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the pavement deterioration curve, but you have 100 being a new road, 0 being a dirt road, and you can kind of see where every treatment falls. So we're going to talk about crack seal today, and then also a double microsurfacing. And then you can see as you keep going down the curve, you touch on mill and overlay, cold in place recycling, and then down at the bottom is fold up reclamation after the road has failed. So why do you need pavement preservation? Really, you can't afford not to. Asphalt is too expensive to do only mill and overlay or asphalt overlays. Really, no one has the budget for that unless you're FDOT. So really, you have to find creative ways to extend your budget, and pavement preservation is one of those. So really, the key is you spend $40,000 a mile early on, and it saves you from having to do the reconstruction later on. It's kind of like changing the oil in your car. You don't not change the oil in your car and just buy a new car every time you need an oil change. You're going to maintain your roads the same way, doing pavement preservation. So first, we'll get into crack sealing. We do crack sealing as a precursor to microsurfacing. So we'll actually come in, fill each individual crack with a rubberized crack fill material. So we clean all the debris out, clean the crack, and then it's filled with the rubberized crack fill material, and then we spray it with a detacking agent, and it's returned to traffic. So it's relatively non-invasive to traffic. It's pretty quick, but it is unsightly. So a lot of the times, hardly anyone in Florida will let you leave a road, looking like this. But really, the benefits are to prevent moisture from getting down on the base. No matter what overlay you do, whether you do microsurfacing or an asphalt overlay, the road is eventually going to crack back. But when the road cracks back, the cracks are sealed from underneath, which will prevent water from getting down into the base and causing base issues and future cracking. And you can see the picture on the right. The left side's been microsurfaced, and then the right side still hasn't been fully microsurfaced yet. So you can see the crack fill along the edge there. This is just a quick video of the process. You'll see him blowing out the crack, and then out in front of the truck, he's blowing out the crack, and then the gentleman holding the wand is actually filling the material, and then we come along with a squeegee and knock it down so it's flush with the road. And getting back to what we said, right treatment, it's really all about road selection. So these pictures are of what you don't want to do. We're not going to crack seal, base issues, alligator cracking. It's just not the right treatment. So really picking the right treatment. This is in the city of West Melbourne before we microsurface this road. And you can see, this is the right treatment. You're looking for longitudinal cracks, not load associated, but just due to age or weather factors. So now getting into microsurfacing. Microsurfacing is a thin lift overlay, and it's made up of all the same components as asphalt. It's an asphalt emulsion, which is basically liquid asphalt suspended in water, and then it's chemically stable, so we can mix it with the aggregate on site, and then all that material goes down into the spreader box, and it's actually spread on the road. But it's different than hot mix because it's a cold material, so it's not hot. There's no compaction, but the goal is to try to provide you with a new wearing surface to protect your existing asphalt. It provides a wearing surface to protect your roads. So this is a short video. This is down in South Florida, the city of Margate. As I mentioned, it's done in 2 lifts. So the first lift does minor leveling. It's like a scratch coat you would use in asphalt. and then the top lift is applied. So this is the top lift. And asphalt emulsion comes out brown, and then as the water is pushed out, it turns jet black. So you can see the material is kind of brown there, but then after it's had a chance to cure, it turns jet black within 30 minutes to an hour. And with the microsurfacing, there is a cure time. So whenever we go by a driveway, it takes about 45 minutes before you can drive on it. So it's really no more intrusive than a mill and overlay would be. You know, you'd have to let the mill go by, then they'd have to let the paver go by. So about 45 minutes and you can back out and drive on it. So the benefits of microsurfacing is we're trying to extend the life of the pavement. We're trying to give you a new wearing surface, a higher level of service to the public. It looks like a new asphalt road after we're done. But really the main goal is to protect your asset. And then it's 50 to 70% less than a traditional hot mix overlay. So you can really cover a lot more lane miles when compared to traditional paving. It has higher skid numbers than asphalt, quick return to traffic. Like I said, maintain a higher level of service for your residents. And then one of the big things too is with traditional hot mix overlays, if you're doing a curb and gutter section, you lose that curb reveal. So then you have a lip there. With microsurfacing, you don't get that. We're not adding a lip to the curb and gutter. You also don't have to adjust manholes and valve boxes. And then also we offer a 3-year warranty. So if any delamination, excessive raveling, any issues with the microsurfacing at all, it's guaranteed for 3 years. And then the general life, we're looking for anywhere, we're gonna average 10 years of life is what we're gonna average. So for 50 to 70% less, you come in microsurface the road, you're getting 10 years of extended life out of that versus having to come in and do nothing and then have to come in and mill and resurface it. So what roads are we looking for? As I mentioned, road selection is very important. We're looking for a pavement condition index score of 65 to 85, so it's a pretty good road that we're looking for. Just starting to crack due to age or weather, not load associated, so no base issues. Roads that are starting to ravel still have good profile. No water issues, no water pumping up from the base. And then you can microsurface over roads that have previously been microsurfaced. So if you come in and microsurface a road, it's not a end-all be-all treatment. You have to come back and maintain it still. So you can microsurface over roads that have been microsurfaced. So then for half the cost of traditional overlay, you're getting 20 years out of the road. And as Frank touched on, in 2010, FDOT came out with a microsurfacing spec, and that really made microsurfacing get a lot better because FDOT tests all their products that they approve. So they came out with their own spec. That's the spec we use, and that's the spec everyone should be using. But they increased the poundage. A double lift is 30 to 34 pounds per square yard, and it has to be done in 2 applications. You can't just lay it all in one lift. They also added an experience clause. You have to be FDOT pre-qualified, minimum of 5 references from a city or county. And you have to have a proven mix design. You have to have proven materials that have been used on previous jobs. You just can't go out and get the cheapest aggregate or cheapest emulsions. And then also the testing and quality control have improved with the application rates and the emulsion testing and the aggregate testing. So there's been 3 state jobs that have been done with microsurfacing, and we'll go through those quickly. This was the first one. It was done in May of 2010, and these pictures were taken 6 years later. You would have a tough time seeing that this wasn't asphalt. It has the appearance of asphalt. This was actually just a single coat, so you could see the crack steel starting to reflect back through. But FDOT predicted this road would only last 3 to 4 years, and this was 6 years after. The second project was done in 2012. These pictures were taken 4 years later. This is in New Mexico Beach up in the Panhandle. They did 7 test sections. So they did microsurfacing, they did a traditional asphalt overlay, They did mill and overlay and then a couple other treatments. And the microsurfacing is in the top 3 out of all the treatments that were done. The last project that was done was at Gainesville on a 4-lane collector road. It's right by Santa Fe College. It was a double with a tack coat. And what happened here is the state came in and milled and resurfaced this road, and they had end-of-load segregation. You could see where every truck stopped. The road started to ravel real bad. So instead of paying all the money to mill and resurface it again, we came in and microsurfaced it and saved them, a third of the cost. So really the key to microsurfacing is, put it on the right road. Road selection is key. And then sticking with a program, not letting it go 15, 20 years without coming back and looking at the road again, and then having a quality specification. These are some photos. This is in West Melbourne. Again, the left side's been done, the right side hasn't. You can see the crack seal underneath. The left side in this photo, this is in Dania Beach down in South Florida. The road on the right is maintained by Hollywood, and then the road on the left is maintained by Dania Beach. The road on the right was milled and resurfaced a year before the microsurfacing was done. So you can kind of see the difference there. And it'd be tough to tell which one was asphalt and which one was microsurfacing. This is in the city of Ormond Beach. This is in the city of Edgewater. You can see what the road, pretty oxidized road on the left, striping starting to wear off. And then you can see what it looked like after. This is city of Bunnell in Flagler County. You can see this is by an elementary school, but we're looking for roads that are still in pretty good shape, but they need something, and mostly in your residential areas, you'll see, a road still decent, it has good profile, but it needs something done to it. And the city doesn't want to spend the money to come in and mill and resurface it because they have, other needs elsewhere. It makes a lot of sense to use microsurfacing. This is in the city of Ocala. We did $3 million for the city of Ocala last year. We did a lot of major collector roads like this one, 4-lane with a suicide lane, and having great results there. So just as a cost comparison, if the city was to do an 1.5-inch overlay at the current prices that they're paying, which is $120 a ton, it'd be a little over $116,000 per mile. Whereas the double microsurfacing would be $44,586 and 67 cents per mile. So roughly 2/3 of the cost. So you can get a lot more lane miles done. You get a lot more accomplished, make a lot bigger impact with the residents. And then the third option is another pavement preservation tool. I just added that in there. It's microsurfacing with a chip seal underneath. And it would be roughly, a third or a little less than half of the cost, $78,000. And this is based off a mile of roadway, 20 foot wide, with no striping or MOT or mobilization cost in there. And this graph just illustrates that point of the cost per mile. But it's a great tool when it's used correctly. We work for the city of Jacksonville, city of Tallahassee, Lakeland. Those are some of the bigger cities, city of Ocala. In Brevard County, we work for West Melbourne. They've been doing it, they're going on their 4th year. And then a lot of cities and counties, that's mainly our work, is city and county work. St. Lucie County uses microsurfacing and has for probably 10 plus years. But like I said, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll take any questions anyone has as far as the process or anything.
I have a question. This ends up being a pretty thin.
Yes, sir. So a little less than 1/2 inch is what the layer, 3/8 of an inch is what the total thickness comes out to be.
Okay, so it's a couple of steps probably above. You see these people that go out into the shopping center parking lots and they spray the stuff on the part. That's
Yeah,
much
seal
better
coat. So
than that, right?
Yeah, so seal coat would be like paper thin. It would basically just be painting the road black. This actually has asphalt and aggregate. So it's definitely a step up from that. It actually provides a new wearing surface, a new overlay on the road albeit just a thinner one than asphalt.
Roughly half inch, a little bit under.
A little bit under half an inch, 3/8 of an inch.
Okay.
The emulsion we use has latex polymers in it, so it keeps it flexible. If you were to lay asphalt that thin, it would just break apart. You couldn't lay it that thin. But with the latex polymers in there, you're able to lay it thin and keep it flexible.
I just have a question. I just want to just clarify. You said warranted for adding 10 years to the road.
Yeah, so we offer a 3-year warranty. So if you have any
Offer
issues,
a 3-year warranty.
yes, sir. Yep.
But I thought I heard you say.
Yeah, you should average. We average 10 years of life is what we get out of the road. It depends on the traffic, really. So in residential areas, you'd probably have no problem getting 10, 12 years. But if you put it on like a collector road or a busier road, then you might only get 8. It really just depends on the traffic. There's really no set formula like you should get this much. It just kind of depends on the traffic.
Here, Jerry. Yeah, you showed a graphic that the cost is roughly $45,000 a mile for double micro seal.
Yeah.
Does that include crack seal first?
No, so the crack seal would be additional. That'd be an extra. Crack seal is really inexpensive compared to all the other treatments. It's about $5,000 a mile.
So it would add another $5,000 a mile.
Yes,
And
sir.
it wouldn't make sense to do the double micros surfacing if you didn't do the crack seal first.
It's definitely recommended, but it's not mandatory. I would say 75% of our customers crack seal as a precursor to microsurfacing, but it's not required.
No, but it would make sense to extend the life.
Yes, sir.
If for another $5,000 a mile,
Yeah.
it would just make sense.
Yes, sir.
And what would that add to the length of usage?
Doing the microsurfacing,
Mm-hmm.
you would extend the life 10 years. So really the idea behind it is just not let your roads get to the point where you have to mill and resurface them or reconstruct them. Just maintain them throughout and extending the life of that asphalt. So if you do a microsurfacing twice, you're getting 20 years and you're only spending half the money. Versus if you did nothing for that 20 years, it'd probably deteriorate to the point where you had to reconstruct it, which would be $400,000 a mile, which is what the city's having to do now with the full depth reclamation. And really, the city of Palm Bay is in a good point to start looking at pavement preservation because you guys are unique because you have so many lane miles of roadway. You're a really big city as in terms of lane miles, and maintaining what you have now, but also what you're going to have in the future, because with all the paving the city's doing, you're going to have a lot to maintain coming up. So you're not back in this predicament, 20 years from now where you're having to do massive resurfacing. The point is kind of just to keep up with it as you go, so you don't have to take out a bond, 50 years down the road.
Frank, what do you think of this material?
As the speaker highlighted, there's different approaches for different types of distressed pavement conditions. We are looking at this. There's many roads that we have that are within that PCI index 60 plus, which do not need a thin lip but need something. So we're looking at opportunities where we may start using microsurfacing, especially the double, to take care of those streets. And we're talking about a good majority of our streets are in the 60, 70, 80, 90 PCI index. A good majority. We're taking care of the worst ones right now, year 1 and year 2. Soon after that, most of the streets are in those good categories. I don't see the need to overlay. The need is to do something of more than just rejuvenation or any type of a maintenance, a permanent type of repair, which would be a microsurface. That'll give us maybe 10 years. We do it again another 10 years, and there's your 20 years. I would have gotten for the same thin lip. And again, most of these streets have good base. I haven't cored them yet, but when I core them, I'm assuming it's going to be the traditional GDC. There'll be a structure there. And so with that structure being there, since I don't see any deformations, any base cracking, base failures, I don't see any major reasons for us to touch that asphalt beyond just sealing it. I think microsurfacing is an opportunity. We will be looking at it. That's why I had the presenter here tonight. I think in the near future, year 3, we'll be discussing a lot more of that type of option. We have right now no microsurfacing I would like to bring it in as an option.
Okay, you were talking per lane mile for, I think, as it was discussed, $50,000 a lane mile?
Yep.
Again, your definition of
So
that?
it'd be, you know, a mile, 5,280 feet, linear feet by 20 foot wide would
Okay,
be.
most of our residential streets are 10 feet wide per lane?
It's exactly what he said. It's 20
Yeah,
feet.
20 feet,
It's
yeah.
20 feet. 10
Okay.
feet each. Yes. Correct.
I guess I did kind of misspoke. It's not a center lane. It'd be not a lane mile, a center lane mile.
Right,
So it'd be,
okay.
it would encompass both
Yeah,
lanes.
'cause I'm used to talking in lane miles.
Yeah, so it'd be center lane mile. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many of those lane miles do we have in the city, roughly?
Off the top of my head, I don't have the actual number. We have close to 800 miles of roadway. Of the 800 miles of roadway, I would say in the top 200s, or a little bit more than that, we have are these conditions that we're working on right now, and we're addressing about 50 a cycle. The rest of the road, like I say, are in the 60 plus PCI index. So
The reason I'm asking is, as he said, going forward, or as you said, next year we're gonna need to start talking about maintenance. There's a real easy way to figure out what we need to budget for maintenance.
And this is different than maintenance. This is still taking care of our payment conditions prior to maintenance. I think as we go into year 3, 4, or 5, we need to start looking at a maintenance program for what we've already repaired. But I'm talking about repairing what we have right now as a first primary option, which is not thin lifting or milling, because I don't think we need to mill it off. I think we need to look at maybe an option instead of a thin lift to micro, at least a double micro. Majority of our road, which have high PCI index, but really has no signs of any base or structural failures. And that'll give us a 10-year life, and then reprogram that for another 10 years or 20 years. But in that period, then 10 years, 8 years, we'll be past the road bond, and then you're into pure maintenance. And so you'll be kind of like a quasi-still maintenance and still doing some microsurfacing. But like you mentioned West Melbourne, I was there with West Melbourne when I was working as a traffic engineer. I supported the microsurfacing. I thought it was a great option. And they're still doing it.
Chairman.
Dan?
Frank, any of the roads that in the 5-year plan that are covered under the bond, would any of them qualify for this microsurfacing?
Yes. It would.
So we could potentially take care of part of the problem at a lot lower cost.
Correct. The bond doesn't define how to take care of the maintenance or the repair. It just tells us that we need to use it purely for repair of the pavement condition. And so microsurfacing does qualify.
And none of them right now are planned to have microsurfacing. We could, is that right?
Correct. The original objective from the council had 4 options that was presented by my predecessor, and they had was reconstruction, which was a full reconstruction with a coquina rock base, full depth reclamation, which was recycled material, FDR, mill and pave, and a thin lift. There was no other option. I think to make it official is to bring back to you, that's what we're having this discussion, is to add some other options. I think one of them is, like we're talking about here, microsurfacing. There are still other options too, like I would like to present as we move forward, but right now I thought this was a good opportunity, since Chris was available to give a presentation, was to educate you on microsurfacing and potentially have that as an option for year 3.
Thank you.
I have one question. West Melbourne, so they've only been doing this for 4 years. What is their future maintenance plan? Like, have they budgeted to come back after 10 years, 7 years?
So they did a pretty good job of keeping up with their milling and resurfacing, so they have a pretty high PCI score as well. But right now they only have a 5-year plan, so they haven't really looked out past the 5 years to, start re-encompassing some of the roads that we've already done. But to your point, it is important to keep up with it, because if you let a microsurfacing road go for 15 or 20 years and you come back and look at it and it's starting to wear off everywhere, then you would think, oh, well, this product stinks, it's not good. But really it served its purpose and, ran through its life cycle. It's like coming back to look at a roadie mill and overlay, 25 years later, it's not going to look very good. And it's the same with microsurfacing. But I would say their plan is, to once once they're on year 4, so, in 6 more years, they're gonna have to start to revisit the roads that we did, back in 2017, and start to look at them and see what condition they're in. And that's really the key, is just come back and reassess them, and if they need microserviced again, then you do it, or if you just let them go for another year, then you can do that. But it's just really kind of keeping up with it and, monitoring them.
I have a question for Frank. So, my understanding is that this may be a good idea for residential roads that are not used to regular heavy traffic, would you say? And how many units do we have?
That's correct. However, you can, as he mentioned, you can still use them for higher volume roadways. I wouldn't put them on a major arterial, but if you have a high collector street, a good example, as he mentioned, West Melbourne, because I've worked there, a lot of the major streets are state or county maintained, but they do have a lot of high collector streets, like we have, and they're still good candidates for microsurfacing. I think the ideal locations are the residential streets, but most of our residential streets are in great shape. They're the ones with the PCI index of 990 above, because they have no volume. The only damaging effect on those residential streets are our heavy garbage collection and truck traffic. Beyond that, the local traffic is very little, so they have very little wear and tear. Actually, traffic from automobile actually massages the pavement. It's actually good for we don't beat it to death. It's when you have heavy overloaded vehicles, heavy overloaded trucks, garbage trucks mainly, are the ones with the sudden stops that start creating that damaging effect on the pavement condition. Then it starts to open up cracks, it opens up the base material, that starts your base failure, and there goes your problem. We have a lot of residential streets, as you mentioned, are ideal candidates, but I also see a lot of our collector streets as ideal candidates.
Yeah, Frank, would you say this would be a valid alternative to thin lift resurfacing? And and it's, again, we're talking about less than half the cost. I think this is something that also we can look at later on when we get into the into the 3rd or 4th year of the road program, when we're looking at maintenance. Certainly, this is more expensive than simply rejuvenation, but I think it would be as far as life expectancy, it would certainly be more effective.
Again, let me clarify. Rejuvenation is not what he's talking about.
Oh, no,
here.
I'm well aware of
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but rather than spending money on rejuvenation as an extending the life expectancy of a road, this would certainly have a greater life expectancy, a greater.
It does, however, you
effect.
still need to have, like our roads that we're paving right now, in about 2 years, you need to rejuvenate those. Rejuvenation occurs right after you pave it. It's kind of like he says, the oil in the car. Right after you pave a road, within a year or two, you've got to rejuvenate it. Once you miss that window opportunity, it's gone. If so, 7 years later, I want to rejuvenate it, it's too late. Now you're just too late. So there's a small window when you have to get into rejuvenation. The operation he's talking about here is no different than paving a thin lift. It's just a cheaper way of doing it.
A lot cheaper.
And it doesn't last 20 years, it lasts 10 years. So we just got to make sure in 10 years we do it again.
Well, again, that's once we get into maintenance of the road program. If we're talking about roughly $50,000 a mile, you're talking about $5 million a year for 100 miles. That would be pretty effective for maintaining our roads.
That's true. Yes, true.
And to Frank's point, it's really important to just encompass all the treatments, really. Like Frank was talking about rejuvenation. If you open your toolbox and have everything, then you're set up for years to come in your pavement preservation. You're actually your pavement program, because you have every treatment available.
Would rejuvenation be an effective treatment on this type of surface?
Not on microsurfacing. So, but they're in a different level. Like Frank said, you're trying to catch them for rejuvenation in 1 to 2 years is really your window, and then you can do them again at like 5. But ideally, we're trying to microsurface roads that are 8 to 12 years old.
Understood.
kinda past the curve.
I understand that, but my question was referring to the fact that once we use micro surfacing on a road, then we can't come back in a year or 2 years and do rejuvenation on a road.
No, sir.
That's
No.
the point.
Yep.
Frank, as you were speaking, you said we could look at this in year 3. We're getting ready to have a discussion about year 2. Why can't we look at this in year 2?
Again, So it's, I was just throwing out there, since year 2 you had already endorsed, it is the next item, but if you want to bring it up as a discussion, you can.
Questions? Rejuvenation, is that going back to, like I talked about before, spraying the parking lots and?
It's different. The main product used is called Reclamite, but it's actually clear. It almost sprays on the road like a pinkish color, but it turns clear, and then it doesn't affect striping or anything. But the idea behind it is it rejuvenates the asphalt. It puts the maltines back in and penetrates the asphalt and makes it not as brittle, and it's not as likely to crack or weather compared to not doing that. It's kind of the idea behind it.
Okay, second question. How many times can you do this microsurfacing on a road
So
and be effective?
we've done it 3 times. On City of Lakeland is the oldest customer we have that's been doing microsurfacing. They've been doing it since '91. But microsurfacing, it's not a new product, but it's only been in the United States since the 80s. It came over from Germany, and they used it on the Autobahn as rut fill, and it worked so good they started doing full lane width, and then it migrated over here as a pavement preservation. But you could do it up to 3 times, but it really just depends on the road condition. You know, if the road condition warrants it, then you could put it back on there. But if it's deteriorated, too far gone, then another treatment would be, you know, more suitable, like a melon overlay or an actual asphalt overlay.
For practical matter, you can do it about 3 times and then it's not.
I would say 2 would be, if you could do it two times and get 20 years, I would say that'd be pretty good. And then you'd probably have to go to an asphalt overlay or a melon overlay, whatever the road dictated.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions we have.
Yep, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Item number 4, consideration of the August year 2 paving program.
Chairman, I just want to ask a question, just revisiting a little something on Eldron Boulevard. I was told by the inspectors you're going up to Malabar and stop. Is that correct? Wait a minute. Stay with me. Eldron, why don't you do the whole Eldron, which ends at Maracana Boulevard? And you'd be done with Eldron Boulevard, period. What are your thoughts?
Again, that project was before my time. Some of these projects were in the books designed partially, and so we just continued it and finished that
You
project.
follow my train of thought?
I understand what you're saying, but at the time, that's all we had designed ready to go.
Oh,
So for us to go out and survey the last little piece from Malabar to Americana, we were already jumping on these units that you guys all approved us to move forward with.
okay.
So I didn't have the staffing to finish up that last little piece.
Frank, I just want to confirm, in year 2, I'm looking at, I I'd sent out an email. This is where I'm gonna bring that discussion in. For year 2, Ferguson, Waterbury, and there's one other road that's been closed. Are those in year 2, and will they be reopened in year 2? Well, first, let's stop saying year.
There are 4 streets that are closed in the city of Palm Bay. We have Waterbury, you have Freehold, you have Ferguson, you have Tranter. Those are the 4 streets that have been closed by the city. And in the year 2, I hate to say it, Waterbury is in that same year, Freehold is in that same year, and so is Tranter. Ferguson is actually straddling between this year and any future years. It straddles between 30 and 25. There's a large canal there. I've called this the sea. There's a large canal, and that one is between these 2 units. It's between 2 units, so it's really, if you want to call it, if you want to call 25 in this year's unit, if you call 30, which is not in this year's unit, whatever unit it's in, you could place that one in that unit because it's straddling between those 2 units. However, Waterbury, Freehold, and Tranter are in the units of 24 and 25. They're in those units.
And back in May, you had stated you were working on permitting for those. Where do you stand with that?
I have permits for Waterbury all done. I'm hoping to get the permits for Freehold, and we're finishing the design for Tranter right now as we speak.
Okay. Going back to the presentation we just had on the microsurfacing and in the northeast subdivisions that were originally left out of our plans, what percentage do you think we could do of those roads if we brought microsurfacing in year 2?
Majority of the northeast sections, the PCI index are below 50.
Is there, in year 2, are there units that have an average PCI index of 60 or above?
Yes, there are. Units of like 17, 20, the 26, 39, 48 are all higher PCI index. I mean, I could say it just on a general sense. There are some streets that have lower ones, but in general, majority of those units have good PCI. There are some few streets that have, I mean, just like a good example, Unit 41 that you're aware of. You know, those 2 streets that we had to do full depth reclamation because they had lousy PCIs. Everything else had great PCIs, but there were 2 streets that were really bad. In each of these units, there are also a few streets that we have to look at because they haven't looked at them in detail. Again, because we were just doing cursory. As we move forward, as you approve this and moves forward, then I'll go out with my inspectors and do detailed analysis. We'll do detailed borings. We'll start the design work. We'll go out there and survey it, measure it. We'll have plans. So once we have that, then I can make real good engineering judgments. But right now, without doing all that work yet, it's hard for me to make those determinations. However, I have done 24 and 25. Why? It's because last year at this time, that discussion was being in place where 24 and 25 was supposed to be in year 1. So I took it upon myself to get out there and do the field work. 24 and 25 plans are already at 60% because we started that work ahead of time. However, they were not put in the final approved set of plans for year 1. Does that hurt me? No, I'm ahead because for year 2, I got 60% plans ready to go.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, if I may, as Frank just intimated, that the engineering is not done for most of the year 2 projects other than units 24 and 25, and you know, I believe that most of those roads require FDR in those 2 units.
In the Northeast, definitely.
I'm talking unit 24 and 25.
Oh, 24, definitely. Oh, yeah.
I understand that.
30 or less.
I understand. My point being, the engineering hasn't been done in mostly in these other sections. So we don't know at this point if whether this double micro seal would be an option on some of those roads and some of those stuff. We won't know that until we get the engineering done, and that's what has to be done after the road program is approved. So hopefully, you know, once it's approved, we can get engineering in there. We can see that, yes, you know, a lot of these streets, you know, that would be a good option, and it would be certainly a cost savings, and that would be, you know, an excellent cost savings. And maybe we can go into year 3 with a lot of that money that we had saved in year 2 from using microsurfacing, and expand year 3. But at this point, without the engineering being done, we really don't know. We can't make that assumption.
To highlight, you can make a recommendation in the units that can and have PCIs of 60 and above. Let us start moving towards the microsurfacing, and then that way we could break those out. Instead of those being automatically thin lifts, we'll start breaking those out to be microsurfacing. That's what you're looking at. We could start looking at those costs. again, as we start the design work, we haven't done the design work, but I know there are many areas, like I say, in units 30 and 26 and 20. I know a lot of those have PCIs of 60, 70, 80, just like Unit 41. I mean, if it was honest, my opinion right now, I would have microsurfaced Unit 41.
I think that's something then we should, seriously consider. I certainly think that should be brought up to city council when they consider the year two road program. And if we can get an idea of, just based on the PCI at this point, if we can get an idea what the savings might be by utilizing microsurfacing rather than thin lift, that would be some good information to have.
Again, that's why we had that presentation this evening. I support what you're saying. I think in areas where we continue to move forward, like good examples 24 and 25, with the lower PCIs and really no other recourse but full depth. In areas that we have high PCI and the potential for looking at microsurfacing, if you want, we'll start looking at those areas and creating streets that should have then microsurfacing.
Exactly, and I think that's information that should be presented to city council when they consider a year two program.
You're looking for a motion from us to move forward with this to city council.
Correct.
I'd be willing to make that motion, or I will make that motion, that we do so with the addendum of adding the possibility of microsurfacing on units that have an average PCI of 60 or above. That would be my motion.
I would second that.
So, question, the public comments prior to board taking action, we have to open it up for comments?
I withdraw my motion.
That's not necessary. This is a point of order. You can make the motion and have a second, and then before we vote, that's when you would ask for public comments on that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so then keep what you said. And
Right. My motion stands.
The only thing,
motion? All right, are we ready to take it? We have to take a vote.
You have to do public comment first.
I'm sorry.
Now it's public comments on it, and you can have discussion before we take the vote as well.
yeah, I just want to, one little thing. Excuse me. I think it was called filling in the cracks, that was adding the,
Correct.
call that?
Crack seal.
Crack seal.
That would be included in the
Yeah,
$50,000 estimate per mile.
That's my question, yeah. As long as that's included, because that's
We'll
important.
make sure the crack sealing is part of the microsurfacing.
Yes.
Comments.
Opening to public comments. Bill Batten.
Bill Batten, 586 Ocean Spray Street Southwest. My question is, when we put these out for bids or for contract for the contractors, since there's a lot, not going to be all the same way, do other companies, other contractors have the same capabilities as this individual does for doing the microsurfacing? And if they don't have that capability, is that going to be one of the bid contracts that we have to see, or will it be possible to have a person that can do microsurfacing being able to work with the other contractors? Because when we bid out an area. We don't just say, well, this pothole goes to this developer and this pothole goes to this one. It's got to have a way where we can work it in with how bid, because we're using multiple contractors as we do this, as I understand it, correct?
That is correct. To help answer the question, our procurement has a set policies on how they want to do the procurement and advertising. To answer the one question, the microsurfacing is not one company alone. There are other companies that do microsurfacing. This is just one company that wanted to give the presentation. They've done a lot of microsurfacing. I'm aware of their capabilities. There are many other companies who can do the same type of microsurfacing. To answer Bill's question regarding, well, if it isn't, paving, how do we match up the apples and oranges? That's the contractors, and that's how they do it right now. Right now, APS is on team with VA, and they're doing the asphalt and they're doing the base work. And so if we add microsurfacing, it'll be another component. There'll be a prime, then there'll be subs that's associated with. A sub may do the FDR, a sub may do the microsurfacing, a sub may do another portion of it. That's how contractors work together, and that's how we get competitive bidding. And our procurement offices like that because that way it draws the price down. We looked at potentially doing an overall one-time list of all paving and get a list and get 20 contractors. But typically what happens in those situations, you don't have competitive bidding, so the prices go up. So our procurement office is not too supportive of that. And I concur. I prefer to have the competitive bidding. So more likely, we're going to continue with what we have right now, which is what we have with competitive biddings, and and these bids will start coming in. Like the pipe bids, there's enough work out there, 5 years, 8 years of work. The bids will start to get closer and closer and tighter, and that's how it should be. And they all work together. I know most of the local paving contractors are very good, and there's plenty of work for all of them to move forward.
Public comments? Oh.
Good evening. I just want to hope that you can pass this the way that it is. I live in Unit 25 on Pago Street, which is the third worst road in the city of Palm Bay. Reading Street, which connects to Pago via Fling, is the fourth worst in the city of Palm Bay. So I am hoping that those two units stay in year 2. We were supposed to be in year 1. I'm glad to hear that a lot of the pre-work has been done for those, so I'm hoping that those can get done early in year 2. So just please keep us in mind and keep us in year 2, and thank you for the road presentation and all your efforts.
Can you give your name and address?
I'm sorry, Janice Lascala, 311 Pago Street, Southeast.
Jeremy?
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Lascal, I just want to let you know that your road will definitely be among the first ones done in year 2 because the engineering has been done. That's the first step. Once the road program has been approved, then our engineers have to go out and get to work on that. So the engineering has already been done in your section. So it will certainly be one of the first contracts awarded and will be among the first ones done. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
Tom, you want to repeat your motion?
Yes, the motion was to pass the proposed year 2 paving project forward to the council with the addendum of adding microsurfacing to the available products to be used on units that have an average PCI of 60 or above.
And I seconded it.
Ready for a vote?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Vote was unanimous. No other items, then meeting adjourned.